Welcome, you guys. It's Thursday here at the Watch Party on the Watch List. I'm that guy. I'm Jr. Hey, um, a lot happening as usual. Deep dives as usual. But a few minutes of an early start here to you guys. First of all, what's up, Ma? I see you guys there. Everyone that's in the building early. Dexter Wong, good to see you as well. Squirrel Dragon, the standards are here. Um, Glad to see you all. I mentioned that I want to start a few minutes early because I want to run something by you guys. Um, and it's been put on my mind as we talk about the destruction of the country, the lack of representation, the stealing of our resources, the attacks from our own government that we're paying for, our international standing in the world being diminished on our dollar and in our name. And sometimes I feel like this is the way people have always survived. Um, we've survived with relying on each other, pulling back from the folks who say one thing and then do the other, buying locally, all those things we've always heard about. But I want to promote some things from some folks. From anything from people's true podcasts, maybe something that they're doing, they don't have as large of a platform to speak from. May Money in the Building is one of those folks, longtime viewer of all of TYT stuff. And she does a podcast grouping with some other folks that I've still not gone on yet. My bad, May. But things like that. Someone else reached out to me before, a longtime listener and viewer of everything, to talk about things they're doing. And I want to start promoting some more folks, specifically things that help folks in the community, that help people maybe hear thing or see something better. But in this particular case, just some assistance to someone. And this ran across my feed. It's this woman. Her name is Ms. Crystal, and she has a little bit of a fundraiser going for something very necessary for her. I want to share that with you guys. And if you have the opportunity, if you have the funds to assist in any way to help her out with this, because these are situations that a lot of times many of us don't have to deal with. And as we watch our healthcare system crumble, as we watch less representation for just general normal things that happen in each other's lives, these things fall from the wayside, and we just kind of don't remember, because we're too busy trying to survive. We've got us all of us in survival mode, and no one can assist each other in that survival when we have those opportunities. So I just want to read a couple lines from Miss Crystal's fundraiser for an assisted wheelchair, motorized wheelchair that she's got up. It's Crystal Dean LeMay, and she says cerebral palsy is her diagnosis. After being diagnosed at 22 months of age, she's been living with cerebral palsy for her entire life, but doesn't allow it to stop her from doing what she's able to do. And what she's able to do, this is the part about community. She assists with children, helps teaching, help organizing at schools locally, things of that nature that helps other folks out, despite the fact that sometimes she needs assistance just from simple things like getting around. One other thing, this is the reason why, because her biggest struggle is with her transportation, as I'm mentioning. She said they have a family sized car, but with that, she's unable to go around in her motorized chair where she's a bit more mobile and free. She has to be placed in a manual chair and then lifted in and out of the car each trip by family and caregivers. And it can sometimes be a lot for all of those folks with lifting and doing all of those actions. And she's unable to push that manual chair by herself and required to help with that area too. So, in building up this fundraiser, she's trying to get a certain amount to get to an accessible van where things like that aren't as needed. I mean, when I was living in LA, we saw these vans all the time. I'm sure there was community assistance with that. I'm not sure the degree of that is happening in all areas. So she's looking to raise this goal. As you see, they've got a couple few thousand towards the $60,000 goal. Obviously, anything helps. I would also like to donate as well when I get the opportunity. But I want to start doing more things like this. I remember when I did the live, regular, normal watch list live. I tried to every week have like the good news story day. That didn't last that long. But also, I want to transfer over into just having a little bit more community help here. Sometimes we're just broadcasting, or sometimes we're just podcasting and talking to the ether. I like to have this specific connection with folks. And I think I want to do it more often. So if you guys ever see any causes, anything specific that you may like, people have reached out to me as far as legal issues. Maybe someone's having issues with brutality issues. And a lot of times I say to myself, I wish I could do something, but I mean, what am I going to do from here? I think there's one of those instances where maybe I can at least do some promotion. I just put the link in the chat to that very specific assistance there for Miss Crystal. So if you guys are generous enough, if you have the opportunity, I really appreciate it. And Miss Crystal would appreciate it even more. Just want to put that out. I want to do that more often. It could be random. Doesn't have to be like every Thursday or something. But I do want to hear more about what's coming up from the community all over the country. It doesn't matter where you are. I think considering we have the reach we have internet wise, it's something that if assistance comes, folks appreciate it. It changes people's lives. Considering our money currently is changing people's lives for the worse. I wish we could use it in better ways and had more control over it, because we've got a fascist in the White House. And there's one goal. He's out to destroy everyone's lives. Let's see. Let me start here. Since we're at the top of the hour now, anybody who's just falling in, you may have just missed my first little thought. I'm going to run by it again a little later in case you guys did miss it. I'm going to do a little bit more community help for folks that maybe don't always have it. Where is the thing I am looking for? That's it. So hi, welcome everyone that's actually on time. Maybe you're not the early nerds, but you're here at least on time. Go ahead, like this stream, share it. Also come back later, view a couple of things that we're going to be doing around, and let folks know what it is that we're up to, because we do this every day at noon. If you're brand new, jump into the chat. They'll let you know how all these things roll. Hey, Christina, Elisa Brown, good to see you guys. All the regulars in the place. Okay, for some reason I'm out of breath. I haven't done anything. Maybe it's all the Nas energy drink I've already been drinking. I was gonna be on the low and not let you guys know that I've cheated on my New Year's resolution that I really didn't make fully. I just said I would. Let me get my water ready. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Since it's the top of the hour, we got several things to get through. This just crossed my path. I was on the back end of all this prep, and suddenly I'm hearing more declarations and more threats of invoking the Insurrection Act. Let's start with what Tim Walz was saying right after Renee Good was shot and killed in his state.
Minnesotans, don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Do not allow them to deploy federal troops into here. Do not allow them to invoke the Insurrection Act. Do not allow them to declare martial law. Do not allow them to lie about the security and the decency of this state. And let's let this investigation play itself out. Let's make sure we protect our neighbors. I encourage you to use your First Amendment rights and all of your constitutional rights, but do so in a peaceful manner. We'll gather back with you as soon as we gather more information that needs to be put out. But again, stay safe, Minnesotans.
That was Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, soon to be former governor of Minnesota, as he's not running apparently for re-election. But that was him right after the murder of Renee Good, and folks were taken to the streets to, protect their communities and to halt the constant onslaught of violent gang members in the streets that have been deployed by the president of the United States with our dollars. And he's concerned about people not taking that bait. And I know what the bait he's talking about. He's talking about the bait where they're coming in and they're attacking people and they're expecting us to fight back. So when you attack folks and they don't fight back, what happens is people continue to get beaten up without fighting back. I know how it works. I know that's the next step. And we're always concerned about they're going to invoke the Insurrection Act. There's this thing though. Every other step that this president has taken and where folks said, yo, if we do this, he'll respond by invoking that or doing this and triggering the third. And every time we don't do anything, he invokes that, triggers this, and then induces the third. So despite Tim Walz saying don't take the bait and people not taking the bait and not fucking these people up, Donald Trump still posted this as of this morning. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Saying this from his perch after he was talking bad about Renee Good, who they just murdered, but somehow they'll take that murder in broad daylight that everyone saw and everyone knows was a plain and blatant murder, and then they'll turn around and say, look at all these agitators, professional insurrectionists, therefore he's looking to invoke that Insurrection Act. It's almost like Tim Walz saying don't take the bait doesn't matter to people who don't need the bait, because all they're doing is trying to steamroll and say we're going to do it or we're going to get some blood as we do it, and probably both in their opinion. Let me reveal why. This is from October 19th. this was months. Obviously, Renee Good was just killed at the beginning of this year in January, just like a week ago. So from October 19th, this same guy who apparently we're not supposed to take the bait till he can say he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act, for some reason was already talking about invoking the Insurrection Act.
I can use the Insurrection Act. 50% of the presidents almost have used that. And that's unquestioned power. I choose not to. I'd rather do this. But I'm met constantly by fake politicians that think that, it's not like a part of the radical left movement to have safety. These cities have to be safe. Our cities that are Democrat run, exclusively just about, are unsafe cities. They're a disaster. And I'm going to save the city. I can use
cities that he hates, people that he despises, folks that he says he's pulling money from. Somehow he thinks he's going to save blue cities because that's all he's concerned with. But as you saw on October 19th, he says that will give him unlimited pop before he cuts himself off, and realizing this is all he wants. We know who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump wants unlimited power. So this is one of the vehicles that he thinks he can use to get that unlimited power, and he's going to blame it on folks that didn't do anything but exercise their constitutional rights. As we know, he hates the Constitution. He's violating it right now. So as he does that, the whole idea is to blame it on someone else, and we're supposed to believe that. Don't look at comment sections on X. Don't look at comment sections on anywhere else where BS is being spewed. They're trying to just get you to waste your time fighting with them while this guy's doing what he always said he was going to do. It's pretty stark. Actually, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, this Nazi, she keeps talking about it like it's some glowing great thing that's about to happen. Similarly to the way they said this mass deportation process that they said they're going to implement is going to go after the worst of the worst, and it's going to be so clean and easy. As we see, it's not, and neither would the Insurrection Act. Here she is talking about it.
A violation of the law in many places. I discussed with the president this morning several things that we are dealing with under the department and different operations. We did discuss the Insurrection Act. He certainly has the constitutional authority to utilize that. My hope is that this leadership team in Minnesota will start to work with us to get criminals off the streets. Remember, we are there in surged operations because of the largest fraud scheme in American history. A violation of the law.
Kristi Noem doesn't give a damn about anything fraudulent. She's working for a fraudulent president who's been convicted of fraud, who's a 34-time felon. She's working also with Republicans who surround him that have also been accused and credibly accused of all the fraudulent behavior that they're taking part in, the stealing of our resources. Please don't talk to me about fraud. We understand these are all excuses to go after the people that they continue to claim are the biggest criminals while their felon sits in the White House. Like I said, the idea is to try and push this and normalize it. This is why from the very beginning, you have to not allow them to put all this blame on you for literally existing and pushing for your rights. She keeps talking about how he has the constitutional right to do all these things that he wants. Your constitutional right is to protest, to speak up, and protest in the streets, which is what people are doing. And as they continue to shoot more folks, because there was someone else they shot last night, I believe, in the Minneapolis area, they continue to do it because they're going to go after this no matter what. We should be prepared for it, not because of what we're doing, but because of what they're doing. Here she is some more.
The president's threatening the Insurrection Act. Just a quick definition for our viewers: authorizes the president to deploy military forces inside the U.S. to suppress rebellion or domestic violence or to enforce law in a certain situation. How serious is that threat right now? Will that happen, Madam Secretary?
You know, I spoke to the president this morning about several different things, but we did discuss that. And that certainly is within the president's constitutional authority to use that if he thinks he needs to keep people safe. What I love about this president is the very first question that he asks me is, how are you doing and how are our people doing in this country? How are the people doing and our law enforcement officers? What can we do to keep them safe, but to also make sure we're bringing dangerous criminals to justice?
Well, there's a lot of work to be done. The president's
Do you really think Donald Trump goes to Kristi Noem and asks her how the American people are doing? The American people that are in the streets saying we're not doing well. As a matter of fact, we're pissed, we're angry, people are being murdered, people are being assaulted and taken off the streets. Which American people do you think Kristi Noem and Donald Trump say they give a damn about? I mean, She actually tailored her thought to be like, he asked how I'm doing. How is my favorite fascist at the Department of Homeland Security doing? This has been their approach. As you see in both of those appearances, she's speaking in front of a gaggle of reporters and also on Fox News, and it's the same talking point. Think about the repetitive nature of the things that they say. Those are the things they want you to begin to believe that don't make any sense. They keep saying Donald Trump has the right to invoke the Insurrection Act. They want you to continue to have this normalized thought in your head that when and if he does, that's well within his rights. What they haven't been saying is protests are well within people's rights after someone's murdered in the streets in front of them. What they haven't been saying is that you're allowed to do the things that folks are doing in the streets. What they're also saying from the Department of Homeland Security is that you're not even allowed to film and record these folks doing their illegal activities, because if it's documented to the degree that it's been documented online, too many people would look at that and see them lying about everything that they're doing and say, well, my eyes saw one thing, but you guys are telling me something else. They need the evidence and the reality scrubbed from existence. That's what fascist dictators do. You notice other countries that we used to, criticize for suppressing people's rights, they would limit people's use of the internet, limit their access to certain sites that would give them information that would allow them to have enough information to go up against the people who are suppressing their rights. This is where we're going. So the next step, obviously, is to go back into the streets and spill some more blood. That's how they act. Here's the former ICE director here. I can't remember his name, but the former ICE director here is also talking about this. This is an entire campaign. It's like they're running for office or something, except what they're running for is for more murder.
It seems like what President Trump posted today about invoking the Insurrection Act seems to be the way this is going, and that's the way it will end. And just to invoke the Insurrection Act, he just has to make a determination that is impractical to enforce federal law because of the obstructionist activities. And I think that's apparent just by the reporting you just had. And you have people like Tim Walz, the irony of him saying they don't want chaos when he is seemingly doing everything he can to sow chaos, to cause division, to encourage people to subvert ICE in their mission. It's really shameful, but I think we're going down the road of the Insurrection Act because Governor Walz is not going to step up to his responsibility and get his streets safe so ICE can do their job. And remember, ICE is enacting the laws passed by Congress.
That's the campaign. You know how many times they keep bringing up Tim Walz, mealy-mouthed, soft-spoken Tim Walz, who keeps saying, please don't stop, don't do anything, please. And then even though he's saying it that way, they're still talking about he's some bloodthirsty animal coming after you and unleashing the rabid community on him. These are the oppositional people to the citizens of the United States of America. Those people in the streets that they're sending smoke bombs towards and tear gas at are American citizens. So as they talk about all the violence in the streets, do they think all of these folks in the streets are the ones coming out and deploying tear gas? Where's the tear gas coming from? And where's the unsafe streets that they keep talking about? I mean, I guess it's fraud, then it's unsafe streets, then it's rapists and criminals, then it's Biden's fault. It's the constant same laundry list of bad excuses that are disproven by facts. So like I'm saying, the approach to this is come from many forms. First, this idiot in the White House, then the DHS secretary there to back it all up, then the former head of ICE. Like, what the hell do you need to be talking for? You're not running anything anymore. But they need to wrap it all up also with some lackeys that are elected officials, like one Minnesota representative, Kristen Robbins, specifically from the state that he's saying he's going to invade and kill some of her citizens. She has to be apparently the I guess the nice cop, the good cop versus the bad cop, to come in and talk the same talking points, but with a softer tone. Here she is.
And now the president says he may use the Insurrection Act because at this point, the protesters have now many of them have turned to agitators who are now impeding law enforcement for being able to carry out their jobs. They are physically being attacked and assaulted, flashbangs fireworks being shot at them, as you see in this video. Do you support the National Guard coming into your state, coming into Minneapolis?
So I'm hoping that Tim Walz will reach out to the Trump administration and they can work this out. I do not think escalating on either side is the best answer. A leader as governor would be on the phone with the with the Trump administration saying, how can we work together? In other communities where you're not having these sanctuary policies, there's not this chaos because they can just take the criminals from the court or the jail and follow federal law. The Biden administration allowed 11 million people into our country. They were not upholding the law. And if we want to get back to rule of law, we should be doing it in partnership with local law enforcement so that our communities and our citizens are safe and that agents are safe.
She can say it with a soft tone, but it's the same words. These ICE agents get to go in and terrorize communities. And if you fight back, that's a problem for you. And somehow the onus is on Tim Walz to go and defuse Donald Trump, who's in a constant, increasing aggressive mode. And which, by the way, if you listen to anything Tim Walz says, it's conciliatory, it's quiet, and it's trying to smooth things over. Exactly what she's claiming he didn't do. She brought up Tim Walz, she brought up Joe Biden, she brought up all these crazy illegal immigrants. She's just as rabid and bloodthirsty as the rest of them. That fascist can't put on like some kind of pearl necklace and think that she's still not, a fascist. When you follow behind someone whose only objective is to take over more cities based off of people that don't like his ass, that means you're following behind a dictatorial leader who thinks he can then spill blood of American citizens to push his agenda. Here's Senator Husted, another Republican. He decided to go more for the aggressive route.
Those agitators, those lawbreakers from attacking ICE agents. And so if you can use the Minneapolis police to get those agitators who are attacking ICE agents out of the situation, get them out of there, then you don't have to resort to this. But that really is where it comes down to it, because these ICE agents are conducting lawful activities. I understand the mayor doesn't like it and the governor doesn't like it, but remember the root cause of this. Joe Biden let millions of unvetted foreigners into this country, many of them criminals. Many of them went to sanctuary cities like Minneapolis. They're committing crimes, bringing drugs, murder, other things to communities. And the ICE agents have the responsibility to get those lawbreakers, apprehend them, and bring them to justice. The mayor and the governor of Minnesota are encouraging people to intervene, to put themselves in danger, to endanger ICE agents. And so what the Insurrection Act threat means to me is Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, take action, or you'll see an escalation.
All right, we'll leave that.
You'll see an escalation. That sounds like the escalation would come from the guy that he's supporting, which sounds like he's part of the escalation, which also sounds like he's part of the fascist movement in this country coming from Donald Trump. John Husted is a traitor to the United States of America. So as he's again telling this, you notice the same talking points. 11 million illegal undocumented immigrants that are destroying communities based on what? Not apparently based on the communities. But as Donald Trump destroys communities, as people are getting killed and hurt based off of his actions, none of that apparently is true. None of it is necessary for them to then stop this, violence that they've unleashed on the streets. Do you notice this? We've gotten so far from the original discussion and senseless debate about whether or not there be militarized people in our streets. There are militarized people in our streets. Has anyone who said that wouldn't happen come back out and said, oh shit, my bad. I misunderstood and underestimated the direct threats that this guy made when he was running for office. Because when he made those direct threats, he said he's going to have militarized people in the streets. He said he's going to go after his political enemies. He said he's going to hurt anybody in these areas that he doesn't like. As it's happening, and as people push back on it, are we realizing that the folks who saw this coming were right the whole time? And if you recognize that, you might want to start listening to them again. Some of those people said that before this even got to this point, maybe we should abolish ICE. I mean, they didn't say maybe, they said, fuck yes, abolish ICE, because ICE and Border Patrol have teamed up here and added all of these white supremacists onto the payroll to come after and come in these streets to attack people. So Husted also mentioned the mayor and the governor, because everyone that represents this state apparently is against America, even though they're the ones that are being attacked. Jacob Frey is that mayor from Minneapolis. People were praising him. I was one of them, about his strong stance right after Renee Good was killed. And he told them to get the F out of his city. He was even challenged on that, using the filthy F word. And then when he then had a double down on that, saying you guys are more concerned about me using a word rather than murder. I mean, I was applauding all over it. I was naive. Because as usual, as the fake pressure comes from, fascists, there's our friend Mayor Jacob Fry on Fox News.
Let me get you on record if I can, Mr. Mayor. Do you support abolishing ICE?
I do not support abolishing ICE. However, I absolutely oppose the way that this administration is conducting themselves with us. Look, there are a number of entities presently, agencies
But
at the
isn't that
federal
what your
government,
lawsuit is about?
that are
Stopping ICE
conducting
right
themselves. No, you should read the lawsuit. The lawsuit says that, hey, ICE doing ICE stuff is not what we're talking about right now. Again, we've had ICE in our city before. We've had ICE in our state before. It is the fact that, look, right now, there's about 3,000 federal ICE agents in our city between ICE and Border Control. You know how many police officers that we have? 600.
Right.
The kind of duress that our city is experiencing because of this is magnified.
He was a roaring lion, and now he's a purring cat. So still, even though you get all conciliatory and say, I don't want to abolish ICE, ICE doing ICE stuff, he mentioned at one point. Well, ICE is definitely doing ICE stuff. And as people are more awakened to what ICE has always done, and then now has been unleashed to this, heavier form, he had a reason to come out as angry as he was. Doesn't look a little beat down right now. Doesn't look like he's, has been threatened or something. I'm not sure if he's afraid, but if he's afraid, run off with Tim Walz. You guys go ahead and take off, since they're continuing to blame you guys for speaking normally of the people that elected you to be in this position, to then run around and turn away because some political strategy group told you guys that if you say abolish ICE, it's electoral devastation. Why isn't it an electoral devastation for Donald Trump to say, I hate this country? Why isn't it electoral devastation for Donald Trump to say that I'm going to unleash more gangs into the streets to kill people? Why is it not an electoral devastation for after they murder this woman in the streets, they say it was all her fault, despite the fact that Jacob Fry's law enforcement of 600 people, some of the leadership of that said that it wasn't that case. They said he shot her. It was a murder. And then being X'd out and boxed away from that investigation as they run the murderer off and hide him. It's weird how they do all these extremist things and then go pointing fingers about how extreme you are for saying, stop it. So yes, still abolish ICE. And apparently Jacob Fry is not in on that fight. So I guess all those were empty words. I won't believe him again. I'll tell you that much. Let's move on. Who knew, right? Who knew? I'm mad that I'm surprised, actually. I'm frustrated that I'm surprised that Jacob Fry went the coward route. Okay. Let's move on. If you guys just got here, we're moving on with the resistance. Specifically, now Donald Trump is ready to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. Good. Okay. It's almost like he was going to do that no matter what, because they come up with the reason no matter what the scene is on the street. So you might as well be the resistance rather than just sitting back while they still call you bloodthirsty, while they still say you're attacking ICE agents. When what is called is defending yourself. Now, there are many forms of the resistance. Like I told you guys, I believe last week, I want to show the moments of actual resistance, the times that people are standing up for themselves. Maybe it's aggressive, maybe it's funny. In this particular case, it was a little bit of both. This one woman, Rachel Cohen, she's from Chicago, but she said she was up in Minnesota, and she ran across a familiar face outside of a Safeway, I believe. Here it is.
Hey fam, I was in Minneapolis and look, we just stumbled upon Greg Bobino at a fucking Speedway for a pre-Hague photo shoot. So Good for him, I guess. For those following along at home, I have nothing against short men, but I do just have to report back there is about a 4-inch height difference. Do you want to get closer so they can see?
Oh, no, a little higher than for you.
Still not the same. So Greg, you're standing right there in front of me, but to everyone following along at home, I hope you fucking eat shit. I hope this keeps you up at night for the rest of your life, and no one fucking wants you here. Oh, fantastic language. There's children in here, and your fucking vehicle, asshole. Choke.
Again, Rachel Cohen in the streets trolling their Greg Bovino and his little ass. Have you guys noticed how small these guys are? Have you noticed the leaders of all of these folks have to be the ones who are surrounding themselves with thugs to carry out all of their aggression? Because Greg Bovino apparently, is used to getting his ass kicked, and he definitely can't fight on his own. So you see, he also tried to intimidate that woman by walking around behind her with his little ass. Bro, there's plenty of short folks. My pops is kind of short. He didn't let that turn himself into an asshole where he goes and attacks people because, he's small. So I think Greg Bovino is going to have to figure out at one point that all of this aggression, maybe you should go to a therapist rather than to the streets, but now it's too late. And eventually someone just might do something about it. So here, let's watch more moments of resistance coming from the scenes in Minnesota. This is a little bit off. It sounds a little off because I tried to get rid of the music here. So there's some lyrics that are rapping over the top of this. Someone put this moment to music. I couldn't resist. I gotta show you.
Trying to take my people out the city, man. Snapping with your glass, I take the city back. Trying to send my deal and my deal back. They put them on the way to work, now it's a rap. See where we be at, it's sincere. Scaring on, you get taken to your kids, yeah. Ice get you gonna disappear and everything, yeah. That's what probably helped that I'm paying for a winning. Shit looking ugly, lot of hating people hard. They just wanna stop the country, give a fuck about our lives. I'll be fighting till the end, I'm in the front of every line. I'ma check on all my people, all I feel como style. He been telling me he good, but he been worried about his pile. Hope they get to stay together and I'm taking for he died. They treat us all like we illegal till it's time to do your job. Why you bite the hand to feed, farm and tidy up your lawn? Working happy on the minimum, cause look at where we came from. It's a third war zone, but don't nobody say nothing. All my people struggle just to live as good as day ones. Over there, abuelita wanna help to raise the grandson. Why you tripping off of immigrants? I thought that was America, the land of opportunity, not breaking down and tearing us. Don't forget you immigrated too, that's why you're here with us. But all they see is black and brown and white, bro, they ain't here. It's a long bus ride from Califas back to me. I promise I'ma try and make a difference, I won't let it go.
So little man there couldn't keep his feet. It was like a cartoon character. It was like that sound every time he tried to step and chase someone down. He probably called him an asshole or something. So that's all it takes to set off, these very small-minded people with aggression on their minds. But still surrounded by all these folks. I believe even his last dive at someone else, because I guess he assumed someone tripped him, but he doesn't understand that his right foot could have tripped his left foot, or maybe that ice that he's running around on slipped his ass up. Either way, he was embarrassed. And once he gets embarrassed, they have to start attacking folks. I believe other folks jumped on his back once he was on the ground wrestling with someone, probably a woman that he was upset at because, she was standing too close to him and he was threatened by her height. Let's move on to another moment. This is the ironic one. This took place in, get this, the Cancun Mexican Grill and Cantina. The Cancun Mexican Grill and Cantina. Don't let the irony slip from you on that, as these several ICE agents tried to go in and have maybe a margarita and a taco. Wasn't gonna happen.
Hey, you know what's fucked up? Y'all Mexicans are doing to us too. What the fuck is wrong with y'all? Y'all proud? Not at all.
What the fuck?
Who's live?
I'm live.
No wonder you gotta fucking wear a mask, you fucking piece of shit.
Got the stun guns out. D. This is like, wow. Every fucking day.
Like, what's up? Where's your warrant? They asked you to leave. They asked you to leave. Where's your warrant? They asked you to leave.
Take off your mask. Take off your mask.
Yes,
fat bitch. From a judge.
out of here, you fat little bitch. Coward motherfucker.
Un-American pieces of shit.
Fucking cowards. Fucking Nazi piece of shit. Fucking cowards. Fucking out of here.
ICE agents were running around grabbing brown and black people as quickly as possible. Run up in a Mexican restaurant looking for some food because apparently they like the culture and the cuisine, but they don't like the people that created it. It's pretty standard for white supremacists that don't understand, how the world works. They're centered on themselves and they think they're superior when in fact what they are is they're jealous of anyone else's life because they wish they weren't who they are. So as they got their asses run out of the cantina, the grill and cantina in Minnesota, they probably went off with their feelings hurt. I saw a couple of people posting that, talking about how dare these libs do all this to us? How dare they scream in their faces, despite the fact that these guys just got off of some kind of run where they're screaming in people's faces, breaking out windows and snatching women out of cars and cutting their seatbelts away from them. But we're supposed to respect these pieces of trash. Nah, man. It's not going to happen. I think everywhere they go, they should be yelled at. Everywhere they go, they should be kicked the fuck out. If they try and stay in a hotel, you don't get to stay here. The owners of this establishment get to refuse service to anyone. No shoes, no shirt, ice on your back, no service. Get the fuck out of here. It should happen everywhere you go because despite businesses, they also go to people's homes. You guys remember this? JD Vance was just talking about how they're going to continue these door-to-door knocks to go and bug people. Harass and terrorize people. But sometimes you should know your rights. Similar to the way this guy did when, from his interior view of some more of these agents rolling up on his house.
Can we help you? I don't care who you are. Okay, then go away. No, you're trespassing. You're trespassing. This is our property. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to do anything. You're trespassing. This is my house. I'm going to call the cops on you. You know I have the rights to bear arms, right? If you're trespassing. Oh, get away. Yes, you are. You can do whatever you want. You're trespassing. I'll call the cops on you. I will. All right. I'll tell them that. You don't need to wait. You're trespassing. I tell them that you're trespassing. You don't need to wait. We're not opening the door. I don't care who you are. Oh, good. Then go away. Waiting for who? Who? Okay, good for you. Waste your time. Thank you for trespassing. Wow.
It's their standard everyday operation. Just talked about how he says he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act based off of these guys who are going to people's houses and threatening them through their doors. I'm going to be waiting outside for you. I guarantee you, you go to these guys' houses and you knock on it and stand in the driveway and say, I'm going to be waiting outside for you. Go ahead, call the cops. I'm waiting for you. How scared do you think these sorry sons of bitches would get? How much do you think they would go on Fox News and start complaining about how, look at these scary rabid libs standing out in front of my house threatening me? But they can unleash guys with big guns on their shoulders to walk around and tell you they're going to wait outside for you. I think in most cases, back before when, a bunch of MAGA conservatives said that they would use their Second Amendment right to go and fight against an oppressive government, I feel like they waited for moments like this. And then when someone else says, I'm going to exercise my Second Amendment right, his cowardly, sorry sons of bitch ass walks away. I'm going to wait out front. Wait out front. Maybe someone will come around behind you and attack your ass there too. Because like I said, they keep wanting to act like the violence and the aggression starts with us. Here's a story from a woman named Patty O'Keefe. You guys may have heard about it. She's been telling the story on a couple of different fronts because she needs to spread the word about what is that's happening. This white woman and her friend were abducted by ICE, and she gave a deep, detailed account of what is that she experienced.
My name is Patty O'Keefe. On Sunday, this past Sunday, January 11th, myself and my good friend Brandon Seguenza were violently arrested and detained by ICE. During that encounter, we had an ICE agent spray pepper spray into our windshield vent. They then broke our windows, dragged us out of our vehicles, handcuffed us, and put us in separate cars. On the way over to the Whipple Detention Center, I was taunted, mocked. Also, on that same ride, one of the agents said that you guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian bitch is dead. Speaking about Renee Good, I think it's important, though, that people know that this is what agents are saying.
That's their objective. As you can see, we know that it was a purposeful murder of Renee Good. We know that now they're using that as more intimidation towards other folks. I played the video twice on multiple days of one of these other agents running up on another woman and saying, didn't you guys learn from what's happened a few days ago? Have you learned yet? We're here to kill you or you roll over. That's the idea. So here again, Patty O'Keefe was telling her story of being abducted, she and her friend taken into custody, and then apparently taken off to a facility. This is where it got even more interesting.
When we got to the detention center, we saw probably about 100 people in holding cells. We heard screaming, crying, just visceral agony from many of the people who were there. You know, someone saying, let me go, let me go, let me go, please, let me go, begging. We heard a child crying. My friend Brandon was brought into another room for questioning where he was offered money or legal protection for any undocumented family members that he might have in exchange for names of other undocumented people or names of protest organizers, a bribe, essentially. And another person in his cell, a Hispanic man, was offered that same deal. They both said no. I had a short conversation with a Border Patrol agent who, you know, was wondering why we were here, why we were so passionate about this. And at the end of it, he goes, you know, I think, you know, I kind of just think that we thought all you guys are crazy, right? And so you have people that are desensitized or okay with dehumanization and also think that people that are out here trying to defend their neighbors are crazy. And that's a really dangerous combination. And I think that is coming across in the way that we see that ICE officers are conducting themselves with people across the city.
It's the dehumanization. So at the back end, when that agent, I'm gonna talk about the corrupt part, obviously. At the back end, when that agent's asking, I thought you guys were all crazy. They can't comprehend the idea of giving a damn about anyone else, about actually putting yourself out on the line to defend other people's rights. They don't care about rights. That's how fascists they are. It's not that they chose and went, oh, you know what? I think this week will be fascist. No, they've always been hateful people that think they have some kind of a like hierarchy of humanity over other folks, that they deserve more and taking it from other people who've done the work for it. That's how we operate. Look what's happening in Venezuela. The head of this whole thing, the president of this country says it every day. He thinks he's better than other folks that have done way more than he ever could imagine doing in his life. So as they had them in that detention center, the idea is to get them to snitch on other family members, folks that they can potentially turn in exchange for some freedom. So I can see the window into one of the reasons why they continue to abduct American citizens. Once they have them there, they'll threaten them, they'll go after them, call them names, demean them, and then afterwards say, we'll give you a deal here off of our illegal activities. And you notice one of the folks that they may want them to expose or turn over to them are people who are organizing. These guys are afraid of anyone organizing against them, putting together a collection of people that is willing to respond to their actions, because what they want is disarray, disorganization, and separation between the folks that they are fighting and attacking. That's how it works. They've got their folks together and they're paying them to do this legal activity, and they want to spend some of that same money that they're taking from American taxpayers to get other folks to turn in the organizers that just might help them break up this criminal organization that they've got. Crazy how that works, huh? So as we see those stories of people like about Patty O'Keefe here that told her story and how they continue this illegal activity, Tom Homan has asked questions about that particular scene where that woman I showed yesterday was snatched out of her car as she was headed to the doctor, and she said she had a disability, and they cut her out of her seatbelt, snatched her on, and threw her on the ground. He was asked about that. See if he gave an answer.
When it comes to Minneapolis, we're seeing images like yesterday of a woman who was stopped by federal agents. She was dragged out of her car. I know DHS always has a response to this as to why they're acting that way. There are Americans who see this and say this looks like Putin's Russia. What is your
That's ridiculous. You know what? In Minneapolis, let's remember who set the stage here. First of all, the Biden administration let millions of people release millions of illegal aliens in this country in violation of the law. Many of them criminals because they weren't properly vetted. We're arresting thousands of them. So first of all, they created the problem with millions of illegal alien criminals in this country.
Hey, $50,000 bribe bag, Tom Homan. The question very clearly was, people are noticing this looks like Putin's Russia. What are your thoughts on that? All like that, that's ridiculous. Absolutely no addressing of the fact they just murdered someone. They just shot someone else last night, and they snatched this woman out of her car, an American citizen, for being an American citizen and driving. So he ignores that, instead goes right back to Biden and the fear tactics. 11 million illegal, dangerous, violent immigrants, dirty, filthy immigrants running through our towns. Was that woman that you guys snatched out of the car and cut a seatbelt around, was she a dirty, filthy, violent, rapist, murderer, drug dealing immigrant that they keep saying over and over again? Somebody's got to ask them the question again. Stay focused. Listen to your own question. And then when they don't answer it, ask them again. Be like, I don't want to hear any more of your nonsense. How about you answer the question? Do you think that woman that was snatched out of her car is a violent, drug dealing criminal? He won't say, because obviously Joe Biden is the first thing to come up, and the next thing is to talk about how scared everyone should be, and then how they should also, you heard this also from the folks that are cheering on an Insurrection Act, is we're going to go up in all of these blue cities. You notice it's the same pattern.
Second of all, Minneapolis, we're a sanctuary city. If they let us in their damn jail and stop being a sanctuary city, we could arrest the bad guy in the safety and security of the jail. But because they normally release them, now we got to go in the community and find them. Then they're mad we're in the community. President Trump made us promise to American people, we're going to find these criminals and make America safe again. So if they don't let us in the jail, we're going to go in the community. And the difference is, in places that's not a sanctuary, one agent can walk into a jail and arrest one criminal illegal alien. But when you release them in the community, now we got to send the whole team, because we got to arrest somebody on their turf. They have access, who knows what weapons. It makes it dangerous for the officer, makes it dangerous for the alien, certainly makes it dangerous for the community. So if Minneapolis wants to help, like I saw Mayor Frey doing an interview this morning, let us in your damn jail. What's the downside of letting a federal law enforcement officer with immigration authority talk to an illegal alien that you already locked up and put in a jail cell? It's ridiculous that they're pushing back on that.
What does that have to do with the fact that we've got Russian-like scenes in the streets of Minneapolis? What does that have to do with it? Because that was the question that he then went on to talk about criminal illegal aliens and go up in your damn jails. You notice how fast these folks who always talked about states' rights have zero principles or any kind of reverence for states' rights when it comes to, once they mention blue states, blue governors, and blue mayors. Which again, he brought up Jacob Frey, who just folded and said, no, I'm totally not about abolishing ICE. I'm in favor of these people that I just said to get the hell out of my city, of them still being here. Looks like it doesn't work to bend over for them, huh? Because once you do, they still say you're the bad guy and still do all of their aggression. I think it's about time we stand up and then stay standing up. Don't start bending and folding then. They're still going to come after you. They're still going to call you the worst of the worst. And this is very telling. Last thing on this. This is very, very telling. I posted this the other day when they attacked and murdered Renee Good. It was Tim Miller from October talking about how ICE has immunity and they can do whatever they want in the streets. I was bringing that up so people could remember what it is that he said and why we're in the position that we're in now from October. But the Department of Homeland Security just yesterday posted the same video I posted that I referenced happened in October, but they want this message to be resubmitted to the public right now.
To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. And anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no illegal alien, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist can prevent you from fulfilling your legal obligations and duties. And the Department of Justice has made clear that if officials cross that line into obstruction, into criminal conspiracy against the United States or against ICE officers, then they will face justice. To all ICE officers.
Stephen Miller literally is saying they have complete immunity, but the Department of Homeland Security said, reminder, and they quoted him. They want to remind folks, in case you're getting a little queasy about this, in case you're a little bit afraid in the streets as people come out and protest you further, you have complete immunity to do whatever you want. You just saw us hide and obscure the identity and whereabouts of the last murderer within your ranks. So in case you're thinking about it, about maybe turning on us, maybe peeking into your humanity, don't forget, we've got your back to be the most vicious, savage person possible. That's their message. Crazy, huh? I got one more. I got 15 minutes to get to it. I think I might be able to make it happen. For those folks who came in on time and didn't come in super early, I started the whole thing by talking about a little bit more community. I want to refresh everyone's memory as you guys are here. Maybe more folks are hanging out. I had a post I put up, or a viewing I showed of a one Miss Crystal. This is more community-based, not national news, obviously, but I want to resubmit this to everyone so you can check it out if you get the opportunity. She's got cerebral palsy and she helps folks in the community. Her name is Miss Crystal. I put the link at the top of the whole chat to this fundraiser to help her out with more mobility, an accessible chair. It's kind of tough in the area that she lives in to get around, and she definitely does tons for the community. It's a pillar of the community and helps folks out. So if you guys get that opportunity, here's Miss Crystal's post. Maybe I'll slap it in there again for you guys to check out in case you guys just got here. Let's do that for a second. At the same time, since I'm over here on this page, here, look, I just added it. I also am going to like this stream. If you haven't done yet, that would be lovely. I appreciate you guys. We're going to keep rolling downhill. We got one more story to get to. And by the way, also on the community help, if you guys see anything, folks who are getting here again, if there's anything you want me to highlight, potentially I'll look into and just kind of spread the word for things. I think it's about time we start looking inward to our community, to folks who we trust, who we know, and who aren't raiding us of our resources to then come and attack us. Because that's the state of the United States of America. It's kind of one of the only ways that we'll continue to survive until this piece of trash is out of office or off of this earth. Which leads me to this piece of trash. We're continuing this drumbeat for war in Greenland to aggressively take it. And Donald Trump was asked about it. In fact, he was asked specifically about it as they quoted the premier of Greenland saying, hell no. You won't be surprised as his reaction to, their sovereignty.
Greenland, sir, the premier of Greenland said today, we prefer to stay with Denmark. Do you see that as the final word? That? The premier of Greenland.
Well, that's their problem. That's their problem. I disagree with him. I don't know who he is. Don't know anything about him. But that's going to be a big problem for him.
Greenland, sir, the premier.
The premier of Greenland has a statement about what it is that they want to do with their sovereignty. Donald Trump's response was, that's a problem for them. Sovereignty is a problem for a sovereign territory under another nation. It's a problem for a guy who invades, countries. So as he's pushing this aggression to Greenland, which, no one wants, that is, except for lackeys like Doug Burgum. Why is Doug Burgum talking about this. I think he must have passed the audition in all those cabinet meetings where he kissed enough ass and he was given the baton.
But I think there's a great opportunity here. I think President Trump, the greatest deal maker in the world, world leaders meet him. They like him. He's never met the premier of Greenland before. They'll be interesting to see how these talks go today. Keep that conversation going. But from a strategic standpoint, from a national security standpoint, President Trump 100% correct with what's going on with Russia in the Arctic, what China, their influence up there, China building weather stations in Greenland. These aren't weather stations. This is about North American and European security. If you look at that map from the top of the world down, Greenland plays a critical role in protecting both North America and Europe from incursion from Asia. And President Trump's absolutely right. That needs to be in control of someone who's even stronger than NATO. That's the United States of America.
Yeah, so because of where it is, right? So close to Russia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Meanwhile, back.
Doug Burgum put that weird, creepy smile on the back end of his face because he's reciting talking points to try and convince people, or I'm sorry, try and convince one person, his Führer, Donald Trump, that he's all on board. He's trying to push this whole thing, this propaganda about how he can save the world from Greenland. Doug Burgum also said that he's the greatest deal maker in the world, a deal maker who consistently threatens allies as their security gets weakened. So apparently also the greatest deal maker in the world that has other European countries out to try and stop him from doing just that. Doug Burgum is there to kiss ass. Doug Burgum is definitely not there to talk about reality or try and quell this situation. He's there to promote Donald effing Trump. That's his job. What's he doing was he like Secretary of the Interior or something? What the fuck is he doing for the Interior? All he's found is the interior of Donald Trump's anus.
But Greenland's prime minister is refusing to turn over sovereignty. He said in a press conference yesterday, quote, "We are now facing a geopolitical crisis. If we have to choose between the U.S. and Denmark here and now, we choose Denmark, NATO, and the European Union."
Well, I think that the strategy here and the opportunity for building a relationship between the United States and Greenland is a strong one. And there's a great history of this, of presidents with leadership. I mean, Thomas Jefferson with the Louisiana Purchase, what we saw when Alaska was acquired. And again, I would remind people the Interior Department is responsible for all of our affiliated states that we have around the world in the South Pacific and the Western Pacific, and our territories that we've got military bases like Guam in the Pacific, U.S. Virgin Islands. I mean, 14 time zones span across Interior. And of course, Greenland, we need to remind people, think it's far away. It's closer to Washington, D.C. than Alaska is, certainly closer than Hawaii and any of the Pacific Islands.
What is he talking about? So when asked about the direct response from the people who, are in charge of that sovereign territory, that area over there, he has to then talk about how we've gotten control of all these other things. What the fuck does that have to do with this? Especially since, as he's rambling on about our power and how it needs to continue to increase, instead, this is what's happening from those folks that we used to call allies. Germany will send 13 soldiers to Greenland on Thursday as part of a reconnaissance mission with other European nations. The German government and defense ministry said that on Wednesday. That's following, of course, these aggressive demands from Donald Trump to invade. The mission, which comes at the request of Denmark, will take place from Thursday, that's today, to Saturday, aiming to explore possible military contributions to bolster the security of that region. Former allies, European nations are coming together to try and figure out how they're going to respond to Donald Trump's continued threat to attack this area of Greenland. Weird. Not only that, though, I had forgotten that this happened. The Danish prime minister, and then they had a little group come together and try and speak to Donald Trump about this. They've gone from the diplomatic route to trying to set up some kind of military defense. Here's the diplomatic route. See if they got anywhere.
We have decided to form a high-level working group to explore if we can find a common way forward. The group, in our view, should focus on how to address the American security concerns, while at the same time respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark.
Was there any progress made in this Washington meeting? Yeah, I think as the Danish foreign minister just said, they set down this working group that will try to set out a path forward. And as he rightly says, what they hope is they'll be able to address some of the security concerns that seem to be driving this push to take over Greenland. Having said that, it's also very clear that they did not diffuse the threats of Trump pursuing Greenland. That was the hope, but not really the expectations that they would get that out of the meeting. But the sense is that we got as much out of it as possible. The situation didn't escalate, and I think that was what some people was concerned of going into this meeting.
Just like they're attacking American citizens in the streets, your attempts to try and keep Donald Trump from escalating anything is purely based off of his desire to escalate things. He likes to fight. He likes to send people into areas to attack other folks while he says it's his power. He's a soft piece of shit. All he can do is unleash violence on other folks and then claim that he's the strong guy. You know, that's how dictators work. They're actually cowards. And if you get in front of you face to face, they run away. That's how they act. But the plan here, still, you could see it from them. They said they're looking to address the security concerns of the United States with Greenland. There are no security concerns for the United States in Greenland, just like there's also no security concerns in the streets until they send their ICE agents there. There was no concerns about our government until they dismantled it and took all of our money. There's no concerns about many things that they continue to do that they claim strictly based off of their announcements that are real. So people keep taking them seriously. People keep acting like what it is they're doing has something to do with reality. Maybe because there's so many propagandists out there. I promise this is the last time you're gonna have to hear from Doug Burgum ass. But he wanted to say something that flies in the face of all this reality that we're looking at.
President Trump, you know, he's against the killing. He is the king of peace. He is the peacemaker. And whether it's stopping the killing in Iran, whether it's saving the protesters that are there on the front lines, whether it's stopping the killing of soldiers in the Iranian Russia war, or whether it's stopping the killing of Americans because of the drugs coming in our country, Venezuela. This guy is the king of peace, and he's going to keep pushing American strength to make sure that we achieve that.
There's that same freaking smile. Look at that. Look at the weird Joker smile on his face. What's the point of that? Why does he do that? Every time Doug Burgum finishes some propaganda line, he has that weird nervous ass smile. What's wrong with him? We already know he's a fascist. That's what's wrong with him. So there we've got Doug Burgum still trying to carry that water. Maybe who it is he's trying to convince outside of Donald Trump pushing his whole agenda. Maybe he's trying to convince the few of those Republicans that are completely and utterly against this. There's several, apparently. There's one, Tom Tillis, who said this is ridiculous, more clown show behavior happening. He's totally against it. Came out speaking about it. Ran some kind of angry TV tour against Stephen Miller, who was talking about this. Tom Tillis is all over it. That is until Tom Tillis is no longer all over it. Here's someone else that's all over it. Maybe they have to convince Don Bacon, Republican Don Bacon from Nebraska. In an interview with the Omaha World Herald, Don Bacon said that he personally would lean toward voting to impeach the president if he were to follow through on his threats to take over Greenland. Here's a quote from him. "I'll be candid with you." Oh, sounds tough, Don. "There's so many Republicans mad about this. If he went through with the threats, I think it'd be the end of his presidency." Don Bacon and his tough talk is talking about leaning towards impeachment, leaning towards it. Why would you lean towards it? What does that mean to lean towards it and not just do it? I'll tell you. Here's more about Don Bacon and his quotes. Bacon, who often breaks from MAGA as a representative from a swing district, has become even more outspoken against Trump. Here's the kicker. Since announcing he's leaving Congress at the end of his current term. That gives him some courage. Another prominent Republican who falls in that category, Mitch McConnell, took to the Senate floor on Wednesday to express his anger about a potential Greenland takeover. So Don Bacon, how long do you have to fight back against Donald Trump and his aggression towards Greenland? Also, his fealty to Vladimir Putin and these negotiations with Ukraine. That's something else Don Bacon has been speaking out about, except he's not going to be speaking out about it from any position of power and influence anymore because he's running away, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene is running away after she gave us these solid principles and how she's looking to expose all of these pedophiles and traffickers and the Epstein files, running away. Everybody's running away that says something that they'll do about it because they don't want to do anything about it. And they need to be absolved of that position. So people want to ask them again, after the time comes for people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to stand on the House floor and read off the names of all of these perpetrators, she's not going to be there. She's gone right now. And Don Bacon is next, even though he's leaning towards impeachment. How the fuck you going to lean towards impeachment when you leave and then get replaced by a bigger lackey? But the back end of that little quote mentioned Mitch McConnell and his vehement opposition to Donald Trump going in to Greenland. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but maybe they were referring to this fire-breathing moment from Mitch McConnell.
Which brings me to the matter of Greenland. The president is right that Arctic security is a central concern in our strategic competition with major adversaries. And he'll find similar interest in Arctic security among allies like Denmark, which is investing billions of dollars in its own capabilities in the region. America's recognition of Denmark's political and economic interest in Greenland dates all the way back to World War I. The Danes have been close partners in the Arctic since World War II.
That clip goes for 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Shut the fuck up. Nobody can understand what this guy is saying. You can barely understand this guy. He can barely keep pace with the normal speaking process. And he's grumbling as he goes through this vehement, angry, standing, principled opposition against Greenland. His weak, pathetic, old ass. Surprised he didn't fall over before that ended. He's looking to die on camera. He won't leave. You know why? Because Mitch McConnell is he's the guy who was a big perpetrator of Donald Trump, who was a big part of facilitating his rise to this second term where he can fuck more things up. Mitch McConnell's the guy who laughed and chuckled with Sean Hannity about how he's made sure to limit Supreme Court justice nominations from anyone else but Donald Trump. He was carrying Donald Trump's water and assisting him legally on the judicial side to make sure he's in this position to screw over as many things as possible. So now that Donald Trump is talking about going and invading Greenland, old ass Mitch McConnell is going to stand there barely holding on to the podium as he barely gets through 4 minutes of speaking that no one can understand what he's talking about, because that's really convincing of folks. So please forgive me for not believing any Republican that has said anything aggressive about how they're going to do something against Donald Trump in Greenland. I'm going to give you a very good example why. Do you guys remember? I believe I talked about it last week, a couple days ago, probably the back end of last week. 5 Senate Republicans stood up and voted against Donald Trump continuing his unleashed powers in Venezuela. That is after they got rid of Maduro, and now after he posted some repost online about how he's the acting president of Venezuela because he says he can do anything he wants, no matter how disastrous of a situation he's getting us into. They voted against him having more powers. They put forward a resolution to limit it. People were celebrating. People were surprised. Donald Trump came out and even said these 5 Republicans should never be elected again. He was pissed off. People were thinking, oh my God, we've turned a corner with these Republicans. This is why you don't believe soft-ass Republicans. When 5 Senate Republicans voted with Democrats last week to advance a resolution to restrict Donald Trump's military authority in Venezuela, it looked like a significant rebuke of the administration, as I said. Now, a week later, after 2 Republicans flipped their votes following intense lobbying from Trump in the White House, it looks like the latest example of GOP lawmakers bowing to the president. And on Wednesday, just yesterday, Senate Republicans approved a procedural gambit to block the Venezuela War Powers Resolution from getting to a final vote, stopping that bipartisan effort in its tracks. I got more. Because again, like I said, they were going to stop him from continuing on in Venezuela, doing whatever the hell he wants under the secrecy, taking in more money, putting it in foreign accounts, all that stuff. They were against it. That is, until they were for it. The turn of events came to fruition after a Republican. These are the two guys who switched: Josh Hawley of Missouri and Todd Young of Indiana. Two of the GOP senators who voted to advance that measure last week. They then sided with Republicans on a point of order to rule the War Powers Resolution ineligible for that fast-tracked vote. They changed their minds. Do you guys want to know why? I was curious because, Josh Hawley was actually a little surprising. When I saw his name on the list of people that Donald Trump said should never be elected again, I was like, Josh Hawley is quick to his knees and even quicker to Donald Trump's ass. So he's switched. That's not surprising. Here's why. Hawley and Young said that their decisions came down to assurances from Marco effing Rubio, who said the U.S. did not have troops on the ground in Venezuela and would not send any without notifying Congress. That's all they needed was Marco Rubio, who lies every day, who follows behind Donald Trump and does everything he says he'll do. Here's what Rubio wrote to them and convinced them of. Should the president determine that he intends to introduce U.S. armed forces into hostilities in major military operations in Venezuela, he would seek congressional authorization in advance, circumstances permitting, he wrote. Now, look, there's two things there. He said, if he intends to introduce armed service forces into hostilities in major military operations in Venezuela. What does that mean? That's a caveat. Major military operations. So whatever they deem minor military operations, whatever they deem just a quick strike, which they already did in Venezuela, they don't have to tell you. And also there's circumstances that'll permit them still telling you. But for some reason, that was enough to convince someone like Josh Hawley as Marco Rubio lies through his teeth. Here's the last bit of information that is about why these two flipped. Senator Young expressed a similar sentiment, but he also pointed to the unlikely effort of the War Powers Resolution ever being signed into law. With a presidential veto all but certain, should the measure land on his desk, the fight was futile, he says. Those who understand how Congress works, this is his quote, the good and the bad and ugly understand that votes like this, in the end, are communications exercises. They're important communications exercises, but unless you can secure sufficient votes, not only to pass the U.S. Senate, but to get out of the House, which is highly questionable, right? And then to override what was an inevitable presidential veto, which is impossible. No one can tell me how we get there. So I had to accept that this was all a communications exercise. You're damn right, Young. It was all a communications exercise, and the communication that you're telling us is that you're willing to bow down and kowtow to Donald Trump. Because when you do that, you're one of those sorry softies who for a moment had a moment of courage, and he came in, yelled at you, and you folded. Does Representative Young sound like anybody that you'd want representing you? He's a coward, and he folds when old men like Donald Trump scream at him on the phone. Matter of fact, there was someone that was a source closer that said that conversation that Todd Young had with Donald Trump, they said it didn't go well. Where? It got very heated, they said. Hawley also recognized that they were lobbying him when explaining his stance, but it wasn't just some coercion. He said, I didn't feel any pressure, but I felt a lot of outreach on substance. These are cowards. The next time you hear a Republican say they're standing up against Donald Trump, understand that they're not standing up against Donald Trump. They're trying to revive their image. They're trying to keep some kind of hold on any small piece of power that they've got, and they're afraid of him. They are petrified of him. Despite, if you look at him, you'd understand there's nothing to be afraid of. I ran old Mitch McConnell's grumbling ass, try and talk through being in opposition to this whole potential military operation in Greenland. Now we're talking about Venezuela. Do you think Mitch McConnell, barely getting through his speech, what do you think he thinks about what they're planning on doing in Venezuela? Because as that Senate voted to allow him to continue doing that, my first thought was, well, what did Mitch McConnell say? Because Mitch McConnell was just against more aggression in Greenland. Here's the information. Mitch McConnell on Thursday, January 8th, delivered a fierce defense of the recent U.S. military operation in Venezuela, arguing against that Senate resolution that sought to constrain the president's war powers. So he spoke ahead on that vote, and they call it the Kane War Powers Resolution. McConnell urged his colleagues to oppose that measure. The resolution was introduced following the administration's recent military action, as we already know. So Mitch McConnell was against the Greenland aggression, but he's for Donald Trump doing more in Venezuela. It's weird. Like he's for aggression every once in a while, but apparently not in Greenland. But those filthy people in Venezuela, who gives a damn about them? We can go take that over because we're looking for resources. Here's more from him. He argued that the War Powers Act, originally designed in '73 to prevent another Vietnam-style indefinite conflict, does not apply to this limited surgical nature of this Venezuela operation. The law grants presidents clear authority for the limited use of military force, he said. First, plain statute. Notification of Congress within 48 hours? Check, he said. Withdrawal within 60 days? Try 60 minutes. So Mitch McConnell somehow thinks he can convince people that even though Donald Trump ran in, snatched up Maduro and his wife, that this is all over. Despite the fact that Donald Trump said, all options are still on the table. Despite the fact that Donald Trump said, I'm the acting president of Venezuela. 60 seconds, 60 minutes you get out of there. Are we out of there, Mitch? Or are you out of your mind? Maybe another fall will help him jog his memory back. So very last thing, and I'm about to get out of here, I promise you guys. That same slow-talking Mitch McConnell, the same guy who apparently was fire-breathing in his opposition, to Greenland, but is totally on board with the Venezuela aggression. You don't have to listen to him. You don't have to trust him. He's the same guy who facilitated Donald Trump's rise. Let me give you a very clear example of who Mitch McConnell is and always has been regarding Donald Trump. 1 minute, he'll talk crazy about how much he is against this guy, how much in this particular case, how he was responsible for inciting all that violence on January 6th, like many other Republicans said in the moment because their lives were in danger. Watch how this then goes from what Mitch McConnell said about January 6th to how he feels about supporting the guy he said was responsible for January 6th. This is how these guys operate. Never trust them, never believe them, because this is who they are.
There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it. The people who stormed this building believed they were acting on the wishes and instructions of their president.
If the president was the party's nominee, would you support him?
The nominee of the party? Absolutely.
Mitch McConnell thought that Donald Trump incited that attack on the Capitol. And then when asked a little later afterwards, would he support that same guy? Absolutely. Don't listen to Mitch McConnell when he says anything that they claim being fire-breathing or in opposition to Donald Trump, because it's only for a second, just like the rest of this party. Don Bacon's running away. Marjorie Taylor Greene's running away because he threatened them. Okay. Are we tired of this yet? I gotta go. Thanks for everyone that hung around past the top. I thought I was going to make it. I'm going to re-up some of those community things that I was talking about. I also welcome y'all's messages and suggestions, and maybe some other tips for people that we can highlight. Things that folks are doing in the world. It doesn't have to be all times just some of these fundraisers for folks that absolutely need the help and would actually better their lives and also better our community as we continue to try and survive through this dark age of fascism in this country. But maybe someone that doesn't have as big of a platform and wants to just maybe get promoted a little bit. I don't have a huge audience. Only a couple hundred of you guys show up every day. But it's good to see you guys, and maybe we can build this community more based on something more than just being upset about the worst people involved in it. Let's have some action that actually helps people. I want to start cultivating more of that. So thank you guys for being here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. It's a Friday. We're going to have a watch party on Friday where we have some adult beverages. I mean, I cheated. I did mine early, so I need something else. I'll come up with something. We'll see you guys later. Tell TBR I say hey. See you later, Mom.